Wow. That was depressingly intense. Hello YouTube, Film Buff 06 here, coming your way with a review of Precious, which was released in 2009. It was based on the 1996 novel Push by author and performance poet Sapphire. It was made on a $10 million budget. It was shot in only 5 weeks. It was adapted by Geoffrey Fletcher, who made history by becoming the first African American to win an Oscar for Best Adapted Screenplay. It was executive produced by the likes of Tyler Perry and Oprah Winfrey. It was only the second feature film to be directed by Lee Daniels, who not only previously produced Monsters Ball, but also made his directorial debut with 2005's Shadow Boxer, and then went on after this movie to direct The Paperboy and The Butler. And the film stars Gabourey Sidibe, who was a newcomer at the time and was nominated for a Best Actress Oscar for her performance in this film. Monique, Paula Patton, singer Mariah Carey in her first serious starring role, and musician Lenny Kravitz, who would later go on to play a part in the Hunger Games franchise. The film was also nominated for 6 Oscars, including Best Director and Best Picture. Now, the film was originally titled Push, based on the novel by Sapphire, but the movie's title eventually had to be changed to Precious, based on the novel Push by Sapphire, to avoid confusion with a little action film released that same year called Push. Now, the story of Precious sounds like proper, Jeremy Kyle show or even soap opera material, and is centered on this illiterate, morbidly obese black teenager named Clarice Precious Jones, played by Gabourey Sidibe, who is not only pregnant with her second child as a result of being raped by her own father, but is also facing a lifetime of physical and emotional abuse in her impoverished household in late 1980s Harlem from her vicious, unrelenting, hulking monster of a mother, Mary, played by Monique. That is until she gets transferred from her old school to a special alternative school where she ends up being educated by the school's benevolent teacher, Miss Blue Rain, played by Paula Patton, that Precious gradually begins to come out of her shell and not only believe that she has a promising future ahead of her, but that there is also a glimmer of hope that she could break free from her horrendous upbringing, and especially her mother. Now, apparently, according to Lee Daniels, Heath Ledger, believe it or not, visited the set of this film one day in 2007, just around the time that he was making The Dark Knight. And in actual fact, this film wrapped on the 23rd of January 2008, the day after Ledger tragically died. Yes, I'm sure you didn't know that. Good thing I told you. Anyway, now, prior to watching it, I pretty much knew from the outset that this was going to be somewhat a very hard film to watch due to the very, very grim, very, very dark and depressing subject matter. And also, when it came out, in an infamous article he wrote for the New York Press, internet troll Armand White compared this film to The Birth of a Nation, unfairly criticised it for being too racist against black people, called it the con job of the year, and then completely destroyed his argument by including Meet Dave, Norbit, and Little Man among his list at the time of excellent recent movies with black themes. Just briefly, fuck the guy, seriously. Anyways, what are my thoughts on Precious? While I won't say it's a perfect movie, I cannot deny that it truly deserved its nomination for Best Picture at the Oscars. This is a very tough to watch at times and nonetheless great film that works on almost so many levels, and is also one of those movies that is not afraid to tackle highly controversial and sensitive issues such as racism, domestic abuse, teenage pregnancy, illiteracy, and HIV. The story, I have to admit, is quite predictable and is pretty much the same inspirational underdog story that we have seen so many times before in films like Good Will Hunting and even Dead Poets Society. But I do like the way it is executed differently here, and it is also really heartbreaking. Geoffrey Fletcher, he did a brilliant job adapting the story with a very well-written screenplay that balances a little bit of humour with what is otherwise really emotionally deep and profound stuff. And I have to say it was very deserving of the Best Adapted Screenplay Award at the Oscars. The way the film is edited, shot and paced was superb and just well done. Lee Daniels' direction was balls to the wall, really realistic and purely awesome. The cinematography I thought was excellent, and I very much loved the way it contrasts the sort of bright, heavenly glow of the school with the dark, grotty, sort of hellish atmosphere of the household, of Precious's household. It just adds a brilliant sense of depth and realism to the film. The acting especially is flawless across the board. Paula Patton, Mariah, Carey and Lenny Kravitz do great jobs with their roles. For her first starring role, Gabourey Sidibe does a brilliant job with her inspired portrayal of the titular character. But the performance that really steals the show is Monique, who deservedly won a Best Supporting Actress Oscar for portraying one of the most memorable and terrifying mothers in movie history, who in comparison makes Faye Dunaway as Joan Crawford in Mommy Dearest feel like a toddler. If Lady Tremaine from Disney's Cinderella had a black hulking, bastard child with the J.K. Simmons character from Whiplash, Fletcher, it would end up looking like Monique's character in this movie. She was phenomenal every time she was on screen, and her delivery of every single line was done to absolute perfection. Especially during the confrontation scene with Mariah Carey's social worker towards the end of the movie, where she attempts to explain and, justify the tragic circumstances that have made her become such an abusive monster. And what is extraordinary about this performance is that she is a comedian, and yet she manages to make such a loathsome character feel real and believable, which I think is incredible. Nothing short of incredible. Now, my only nitpick with the film is the depiction of the fantasy sequences that happen every time something bad happens to Precious. Now, I do respect the fact that it was Lee Daniels trying to show off his unique style of filmmaking. And yes, they do serve as a nice break from all the misery that happens to the central character, but in my opinion, Daniels should have had Precious just simply explain to us, the audience, what she's thinking without having to, visually show what she's thinking. Maybe that's just me, but I thought that they were somewhat a bit out of place and didn't quite gel well with the otherwise dark, gritty, bleak and realistic tone of the rest of the film. You might disagree with me, but feel free to disagree with me on that. So there you go. While I wouldn't really recommend this movie to those that are emotionally oversensitive, have very weak stomachs, and simply cannot handle watching really tough visual imagery, what I will say is that this film will be an unforgettable experience after you have watched it. I can safely guarantee that. So, in conclusion, I can only give Precious an overall awesome-tacular rating of 9 out of 10. Now, feel free to leave a comment in the section below and not only let me know your thoughts on Precious, but also let me know what you guys thought of Monique's performance in the movie and whether you think she deserved to win her supporting actress Oscar or not. Plus, feel free to subscribe to my channel as always. And until my next video, which is probably going to be a live reaction video to the upcoming Spectre trailer later tonight. The upcoming Spectre teaser trailer later tonight. Do take care, everyone, and goodbye.